News from across the Federation, spanning the region and covering the globe. This is the Kiss FM SKN News Now Evening Edition, your one true source for news. And now your presenter.
I'm Ebony Brandon. Today is Thursday, the 2nd day of February 2017. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. In the headlines this evening, nationally, the government's indifference to criminal activity will cost them dearly, warns former Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Earl Asim Martin. Regionally, more women are consuming alcohol in Grenada, and health and education officials are deeply concerned over this trend. Internationally, Donald Trump strikes again, earlier today calling a deal with Australia to relocate refugees dumb. We've got the details of these stories and more straight ahead in this evening's edition of SKN News Now. The deputy leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Dr. Earl Asim Martin, is drawing attention to the government's silence in the face of increasing criminal activity. Speaking yesterday, Dr. Martin noted that criminal activity, particularly home invasions, is on the rise. He also addressed a number of robberies and home invasions which have affected persons residing in Frigate Bay.
Over the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to visit some of my constituents in the Frigate Bay area, and the major complaint they've been echoing is the issue of house invasion. Their houses have been broken into continuously, apartments been broken into, students have been affected, they are frightened, a sense of anxiety amongst the residents in the Frigate Bay, the Half Moon area, the Calypso Bay area, and as I said, the whole of Frigate Bay. But I don't want to exclude anywhere, because it's apparent that the whole country is going through this particular problem at the moment, where criminal activity, especially house invasion, is upon the rise. We had just on Monday an activity in Frigate Bay that we have had a big police operation where criminals would have broken into homes in the Horizon area, and certain streets, certain areas in Frigate Bay were actually shut down for hours while the police were actually carrying out the operations in that particular area. So we realized that although we haven't heard anything on the radio, the government is not saying anything, because it appears as if it's a policy of the government not to say anything about criminal activities in the country and to assume that everything is okay. The citizens of the country are the ones who are suffering on a daily basis, based on the sense of the government not responding to the issue of the criminal activities in the country.
The former Deputy Prime Minister revealed that due to the high incidence of robberies, some of which have left employees injured, some businesses have been forced to adjust their financial and payment practices in order to prevent their employees from being targeted by criminals.
It has even reached a situation where operators of bakeries are now issuing letters to their customers, informing them that their mechanism of payment for their bread will be via credit card. How many of those residents who are living in the various communities throughout Bastille do have an access? The whole country do have an access to a credit card, so when the bus comes around to be able to buy maybe it's $5 bread, $10 bread from these buses. How many of them do have access? That is the state of affairs that we are living at this present moment because of the criminal activity that is affecting the country. And we are seeing on a daily basis how it's affecting businesses, how it's affecting people's lives, and it's affecting the whole composition of the society. And I would want to ensure that the government, the Minister of National Security, begins to pay some attention to this situation of the criminal activity. But we are fully aware that while he might be in that position is not a position that he would want to be in. Because when he was a minister within the Labour administration, on 2 occasions, he refused the position as Minister of National Security. Refused to accept it. Said that he thought that he was not able to carry out the duties of the Minister of National Security. So I don't know how in 2015, 2016, he has developed the competences to be the Minister of National Security.
Dr. Martin highlighted the growing attitude as well of indifference within society towards criminal activity, particularly regarding more heinous crimes. This, he says, could have disastrous consequences for the Federation if the government does not pay attention.
There's a situation slowly creeping into the country where murder, there's a sense of immunity, where people now take it as just another murder. And people are not showing the kind of empathy, or the government is not showing the kind of concern. So when you hear somebody get killed or somebody get shot, or whatever the case might be, it's supposed to just pass through 1 year. There's no emotion, there's nothing about it. And it's a serious situation that is slowly developing into the country. And I would want to ensure that the government is paying keen attention to this, because we don't know exactly who will be the next person. It's just today, this morning, we had a murder in the Manchester Avenue area. Over the weekend, there was also a murder in Nevis. So basically, we have seen 2 murders thus far for the year. And we want to make sure that this situation, as it was in 2016, is not the syndrome that will continue to affect us into 2017. I just want to echo that warning.
Chairperson of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Honourable Marcella Liebert, is lamenting the continued displacement of Basseterre High School students. Speaking on Wednesday, Ms. Liebert revealed that she has been informed that a number of shipping containers have been designated for use as classrooms. This, she says, is an insult to the students.
The Basseterre High School, as you know, was a major political issue for this government. They talked, they ranted, they raved about it for 2 years before taking office. They're in office now for 2 years, so that's 4 years of talk. 4 years of talk about the Basseterre High School. They have refused to accept the scientific findings of even the best in the world when it comes to occupational health and safety. That is NIOSH. All on the altar of politics. They sacrifice our children for politics. Now, it is so very shameful to see that after 4 years, the latest addition to the modern state-of-the-art Basseterre High School are about 5 used containers. We understand these are to be used as classrooms for the fifth formers. It is really a disgrace and an insult to our children to put them in containers, used containers as classrooms. Already, the children are scattered all over the place. Avec, Washi, 17 Degrees, Premier Dental, Beach Allen, they're scattered all over the place right now. The original modern state-of-the-art high school that they said they opened was not properly planned. So it did not have enough classrooms for all of the children. And now we are adding containers, making it very clear that from the beginning it was just talk, no proper planning, no foresight with respect to the Basseterre High School. Just make up as you go, as we have seen all along. And it is totally unacceptable and deplorable that in 2017, our children are being put in containers for classrooms. The public is asking who is really responsible for these containers? Who is really making all this money out of these containers? Because these people, they don't have any children going there, and so they don't really care where the children are put once they make their money. Because, you know, this seems to be a container government. And I'm appealing to parents not to accept this. This is an insult to our children.
She continued that given the occurrences surrounding the Bastia High School debacle, the use of shipping containers as classrooms is reprehensible.
The only good thing I would say about these containers is that we can use them to ship this government out of office. Put them in there, ship them out for their incompetence, their vindictiveness, the deception, lack of transparency, and the corruption in government. But to put our children in these used containers to us is reprehensible. And again, I'm saying, we, the public, the parents, must not accept this.
The Boyd's playfield was already in the final stages of completion, contrary to what Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Youth, Sport and Culture, Honourable Sean Richards, would have the country believe. This was Parliamentary Representative for Constituency Number 3, Honourable Congress Maynard's response to remarks by Mr. Richards earlier this week. During a tour of the Boyd's playfield on Monday, 31st January, Deputy Prime Minister Richards stated that upon being elected to office in 2015, the Team Unity administration met the playfield in an unusable state.
We have made significant progress with this particular sporting facility in bringing it to a level where persons within the community can actually begin to utilize it. If you come here at this particular point in time, especially in the afternoons, you would actually see persons here, whether it is playing football, running around on the field, whatever it is they want to do. Now, why are they able to do this? Because over the last 2 years in particular, the new Team Unity administration has spent in excess of $1 million to ensure that persons can use this field.
Yesterday, however, Mr. Maynard provided information concerning the Boyd's playfield development, saying that he was happy that the Team Unity administration had completed what was left undone due to the change of government. There is evidence to support Maynard's claim that the grounds were almost complete, as in early 2015, during a tour of his constituency with ZIZ Television, the Boyd's playfield was visited and discussed at length. At the time, the new washrooms and player facilities had already been installed, and there was visible evidence of work being done to prepare the field, fencing, lighting, and accommodations for spectators.
Time and time again, I've come on this program in Parliament, publicly on the platform, call for this government to complete the playfield at Boyd's. In the latter part of the former administration, we were able to do all of the earthworks. We were able to build the stadium before the government changed. But when the government changed, there was still the planting of the grass, the fencing, and a play area to be done. Yesterday, the government, in their mode of deception, launched the facility as if it were Team Unity government that brought that initiative to bear. I have called consistently for them to follow through on getting the lighting and the fencing and the field done. If you go to my budget presentation in 2015, you would hear my plea to get the playfield completed and not derive the residents of Boyd's that opportunity. And I am happy that the government has now continued what was started under the last administration. But why is it necessary always to feel that you can fool people in believing that you are their holy Lord and Savior? And so, don't stop there, because I've also called for the development of the playfield in the Limekeel area, and I continue to call for that.
The History and Heritage Month of Activities Committee last evening held a brief ceremony to commence the month of activities. President of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, Sir Probin Innes, during his opening remarks, stressed the importance of spreading the message of the Federation's local history, not just during this month, but throughout the year.
We, the converts, know what others who are not as keen as we are, who are not making it our business to know more about our history and the heritage, we know what they're missing out on. And so I want to ask you, please, to make an even greater effort to win more converts so that we can have more and more people spreading the message of the importance of history and heritage, not just during the month of February, but throughout the year. I sincerely hope that we can get the media rather more involved. I hope that every month the radio station, the TV station will find ways and means of inviting somebody to talk about some aspect of history. Or it could be a panel discussion. Apart from February, each month we'll be hearing something about our history. We are hoping that some of this would get into the schools, and we are hoping that overall we are going to have more and more and more of us interested in promoting that sense of pride, that sense of belonging, which comes from being intimately knowledgeable about our own history.
The month of activities was declared open by Minister with Responsibility for Culture, Honorable Sean Richards. During his presentation, Minister Richards highlighted the significant impact the Buckley's Uprising of 1935 had on the achievement of statehood in 1967.
The word statehood is probably a foreign word to many persons within society. I happened to be in my vehicle just last week and listened as Miss Percival was doing an interview, I think, with Win FM on this very same theme and history and heritage month. For me, of course, it was a reminder as to where we were and indeed where we have come from. I certainly was not born as yet in 1967. Not only wasn't born as yet. I'm a child of the 70s. So certainly in 1967, I was not born as yet. And so for me, of course, I can speak to some of the earlier years associated with statehood. But as we look at the Buckley's Uprising some 82 years ago, and we look at statehood 50 years now later, the question is, what are we living for today? The fight that our forefathers would have endured to bring us now to a state of independence, are we taking advantage of everything that they would have fought for? Whether it is that right to vote, that right to self-governance, are we fully taking advantage of it? Are we here in St. Kitts and Nevis behaving as independent thinkers in the true reality of what it is to be an independent thinker?
Among the activities planned for History and Heritage Month are a writing exercise for both primary and high schools, which was launched today. Students will tackle the topic History Matters. The deadline for entries is February 17th. Submissions will be judged and presented later this month. On Saturday 4th, the church service will be held at the Sandy Point Seventh-day Adventist Church at 11 a.m. On Saturday 18th, a History and Heritage walk to Charles Fort, then Brimstone Hill will take place. A statehood lecture will take place on Thursday 23rd at 7 p.m. at the University of the West Indies Open Campus. The lecture will be facilitated by Queen's Counsel Charles Wilkin. A cultural fair will also take place on the premises of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. Finally, on Sunday 26th February, a senior citizens social will be hosted at Matheson House at Taylor's Range, which will be followed by a panel discussion later that same day. Dr. Kelvin Daly, former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture on Nevis, is questioning the inactivity of the Concerned Citizens Movement in respect of development on Nevis for the past 4 years. Referencing a recent flurry of infrastructural activity on the island, Dr. Daly said the people should not be fooled into believing that things in Nevis are wonderful.
In the last shower rain, elections are on the doorstep. They're scrambling like blowflies and a dead fish to get things done. One poster was posted at Braziers about some demon roads up there. Now the whole public works has mobilized to get this road done because elections are coming. Where have they been for the last 4 years? And if people are going to allow themselves to be fooled that this last minute spurt of activity is where real direction and real leadership comes from, you got a mistake coming. Because after the election coming, you're back to square one again. Nothing gets done. This is a no action, no progress party that we are fighting against tooth and nail because they're no good for Nevis. They're no good for the Federation.
Dr. Daly is also strongly objecting to what he describes as a system of absentee leadership employed by the CCM, as the Premier and Deputy Premier are almost never on the island.
Those who are listening outside in the greater world, do not be fooled when they come and visit you and tell you how good things are, how wonderful Nevis is. We are on our knees here in St. Kitts and Nevis because of poor leadership. I should say absenteeism leadership, because our leaders are no longer here in Nevis, they're resident in St. Kitts, and they're hoping that whatever spin-off they get in Nevis is good enough. Whatever investments are made in St. Kitts in tourism or whatever, if we get a little bit of it, it's good enough. Nevis taxpayers didn't pay for that. We didn't pay for that. We are paying 2 people to go to St. Kitts to represent the views and the aspirations of Nevisians. And we're not getting that. We're getting tourism. We're getting tourists who travel into St. Kitts every Monday and come back on Friday. And when they're not in St. Kitts, they're going gallivanting across the world. Bringing back nothing!
That wraps up our national developments this evening. Still to come in regional news, increased alcohol consumption among women in Grenada is causing the Ministry of Health and Education deep concern. The highest levels of alcohol consumption has traditionally been among males. In recent times, however, studies conducted in Grenada have shown a frightening trend of increased alcohol consumption among females 18 to 30 years old. Experts say if not addressed immediately, it may create societal problems which do not now exist. Miguel Payne has the story.
Drug Control Officer attached to the Ministry of Education, Dave Alexander, says the current trend that his department is seeing is quite troubling. He examines some of the possible reasons for the increase in alcohol consumption by these young females.
An examination of various data will show a number of things. One, that these young females, they have a greater disposable income. Many of them are working, etc. And so with that increase in the income and availability of money, basically, we've seen that they're able to purchase these stuff. 2, in the last 15 to 20 years in Grenada, we've seen the proliferation of nightclubs, the proliferation of fetes and parties and cruises, etc., which target, in particular, females.
Now, added to this, he says, is social transformation and a change in values among our people. Alexander noted that what is interesting is that consumption of alcohol by males of the same age group has seen a decrease.
If we look at the secondary schools data, for example, for the survey for 2013, while there was an overall decrease in the consumption of alcohol among students in our secondary schools, we observed that there was an increase, though, among the females. And that was interesting. There was a decrease among the males, but a decrease among the female students. And this continues with the general population. So clearly the increase in consumption among females is one that has really caught our attention.
He says the situation remains very similar throughout the region. Some of the data was gathered from school surveys, treatment centers, and hospitals around the island. He remains hopeful that there will be a turnaround with this situation and that the future of our country will stand in good hands.
St. Lucians have been reacting to the new reduced VAT rate, which came into effect on Wednesday. The St. Lucia Employers Federation in particular says the VAT reduction will improve the cash flow of businesses and consumers. Riani Isidore reports.
From a pre-election United Workers' Party campaign promise to a reality now felt by St. Lucian consumers. Standard value-added taxes are down by 2.5 percentage points from 15 to 12.5% nationally. Critics contend that the VAT debate and the UWP's proposal for incremental reductions and an eventual elimination contributed to the 2016 June 6 election swing away from the St. Lucia Labour Party. The lower VAT rate took effect on February 1st, 2017. Newsforce captured reaction on the tax cut from key stakeholders. Joseph Alexander is Executive Director of the St. Lucia Employers Federation.
The mood on the ground is elation. People are very happy in that they could see that it's going to be a reduction in the price of goods. Note, we may not see the reduction immediately, right? Because there are people with goods who have paid their 15% VAT. But we expect in short order to see a general reduction.
According to the Federation, businesses and consumers will be the direct beneficiaries of the Alan Chasney-led shift in fiscal policy.
This companies have been looking forward to because, for one, it's going to improve their cash flow. Because instead of paying 15% up front now on the VAT, they would be paying 12.5%. So that leaves a little more on the cash flow. Also, it will put more money in the pockets of consumers. And this we expect to be reflected in sales to our various members. So all in all, it's a cautious move. It's a move that has been met by the employers with some degree of happiness.
The 2.5% reduction reportedly amounts to an estimated $52 million in revenue foregone by the government, still grappling with mounting debt and a gaping fiscal deficit. The Finance Ministry, led by Prime Minister Chasney and Dr. Eubaldus Raymond, expect the $52 million to trickle down to consumers, boosting their spending power. As the new era of a 12.5% VAT rate begins, local businesses are cautiously optimistic.
And I don't expect to see a change immediately. I don't think this reduction to 2.5% is going to make a big impact initially. I think a lot of businesses, it's gonna take some time for it to settle in, because I think most businesses don't really reduce their prices, and that's what we need to see, a reduction in prices. And that's because it's a lot of work, first of all, and there's hardly a difference in price, a few cents. So eventually you will see, as new goods come in, people will price them accordingly, according to their own markups. I don't know how people do their own businesses, but it's according to my own markups. I have a set amount for markup. So obviously, if goods are cheaper, then for me, then it'll be cheaper for the customers.
Despite speculation about a review of the VAT-exempt and zero-rated items list, the Finance Ministry is adamant that for now, there will be no changes.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the country's Northern Police Division has reported a 50% reduction in robberies and a 35% reduction in serious crimes for January 2017 as compared to the same period in 2016. But when it comes to homicides, the division is still recording the highest rate at about 50%, with a new and worrying murder trend. More in this report.
In 2016, the Northern Division recorded 124 murders, most of which were linked to drugs and gangs, the highest homicide rate compared to other divisions. Head of the Northern Division, Senior Superintendent McDonald Jacob says, as of January 2017, there have been 16 murders.
Yeah, Northern Division actually is the division with the highest number of murders for the month of January. Probably the closest was another division with about 8.
Jacob says measures have been implemented to treat with crimes relating to revenge, drugs, and gang warfare. He adds that persons have been charged for 3 out of the 16 murders in 2017, while others have been arrested for various crimes. But there's another problem, a shift in the murder trend.
A full analysis of the murders indicates that a lot of these murders, 8 in fact of these murders, were in fact domestic relationship motivated crimes. 3 were robbery motivated, while the others were drug and gang related.
It poses some difficulty, according to Jacob, as gang-related measures may not curb the domestic murder pattern.
The question of the domestic and relationship issues is something that we will have to make a plead to the general public about how to deal with issues involving conflict. And I again make the plea for the mediators, the persons who are the experts in conflict resolution, to join with us and do work within the communities.
For the year so far, the Northern Division has seized 21 illegal firearms, implemented a patrol strategy it views as effective, and launched the Power to Change program in collaboration with various schools.
Still to come in international news tonight, police in Hong Kong are searching for a missing Chinese billionaire. United States President Donald Trump is hit out at what he says is a dumb deal to take illegal immigrants from Australia.
With hindsight, we could have read the body language. Donald Trump animated, his chief strategist Stephen Bannon distracted, and National Security Advisor Michael Flynn brooding in the corner. All the president's men had had a long day in the Oval Office. The call to Malcolm Turnbull was the last of 5 with world leaders, and the Prime Minister gave a business-like report of its tone.
I had a constructive call with President Trump yesterday.
The White House had an altogether different version and has briefed it out to the Washington Post. This was the worst call by far, the president's quoted saying, after hanging up 25 minutes into a scheduled hour-long call.
It was described to me as contentious, certainly, and at times hostile.
Hostilities had broken out when Malcolm Turnbull asked Mr. Trump to honour his refugee resettlement deal made with Barack Obama. All week he's been convinced he would.
These conversations are conducted candidly, frankly, privately.
Not anymore. The exasperated president's gone public. Do you believe it? The Obama administration agreed to take thousands of illegal immigrants from Australia. Why? I will study this dumb deal, he tweeted.
He's crab walking away from it.
No, I don't think that's... no, that's not... Ben, this is not a deal that he would have done.
Donald Trump's made that much abundantly clear. The leaked account of his chat with Mr. Turnbull had him saying this is the worst deal ever, believing he's going to get killed politically and suggesting Australia was trying to export the next Boston bombers.
We've never had a president in my memory who has bullied our friends in this way.
The White House has been waging a determined campaign to cast doubt over the deal, starting with a call to the ABC's Washington bureau chief and following up with a written statement earlier today that the president is still considering whether or not he'll move forward with this deal. The arrangement stands until it's revoked, and the government maintains that officials are still working on applying it. But privately, even a minister concedes that Trump hates this deal, despite the public position that everything's locked in.
We have certainly received an assurance that the agreement remains in place.
The President assured me that he would continue with, honour the agreement we entered into.
The government, like the refugees, has a helpless weight on the whim of a no-rules president.
Hong Kong police are investigating the disappearance of a billionaire Chinese businessman. Xiao Xinhua is believed to have been detained and taken to mainland China to help with corruption investigations there. Many fear this is another example of Beijing interfering in Hong Kong's affairs.
This was where billionaire Xiao Xinhua was last seen in Hong Kong. There's much speculation about how and why he is now in mainland China. But the circumstances of his disappearance from the city are familiar to people in Hong Kong. His case parallels that of 5 Hong Kong booksellers who vanished last year only to turn up in detention on the mainland. Democratic Party politician James To was active in seeking an investigation into their case. He fears that this latest incident could damage Hong Kong's rule of law.
The biggest concern is that our own safety, whether we have under the protection of rule of law. Well, we don't know whether the ordinary people may have the same consequence.
Police here are looking into the case of the businessman who is a Canadian citizen of Chinese descent. If found that mainland Chinese security were involved, it would be a violation of the One Country, Two Systems agreement with Beijing. Many here say it's up to Hong Kong's leaders to protect the city's autonomy. Regina Ip is a candidate in next month's elections for chief executive. She says there needs to be some sort of a formal agreement with Beijing.
That would facilitate cross-border cooperation, in law enforcement. At the same time, safeguarding the rights and freedoms of any resident in Hong Kong. Because if you make a request for rendition under these agreements, you do it through the courts. You follow due process, and the procedure will be entirely transparent.
Hong Kong has a separate and independent legal system from China, but many feel it's been compromised.
Despite protests by the community and similar protests by the Hong Kong authorities, these sentiments, these objections have not been taken into consideration by the Chinese authorities.
The international community, too, has taken note of the central government's involvement in the city's affairs.
In the latest report by the Washington-based rights group Freedom House, Hong Kong's liberties are at some of its lowest levels. The report says Beijing's influence is increasing in the city's political, civil, and economic affairs. And with this incident, it's not just the freedom of people in Hong Kong at stake, it's also the city's reputation as an international financial center.
The U.S. military has admitted that civilians, including children, were probably killed in Yemen during the first operation authorized by President Donald Trump. The Pentagon had previously said only 14 fighters were killed in the raid against al-Qaeda on Sunday. But medics on the scene say the death toll was far higher and includes children. The U.S. military has opened an investigation. Andrew Simmons has more.
The first major military operation authorized by Donald Trump, the target, al-Qaeda in Yemen, and it didn't go as planned. It's now emerging that more civilians were killed, including women and children. This in addition to the death of Navy SEAL William Ryan Owens. The president here setting out with daughter Ivanka Trump to pay tribute to the Special Forces soldier when his body was flown home.
You never want to call something a success 100% when someone's hurt or killed.
U.S. Central Command says in a statement that investigators are trying to determine if there were any still undetected civilian casualties in the ferocious firefight. And it goes on to say that the known possible civilian casualties appear to have been potentially caught up in aerial gunfire. Aside from Apache helicopters used in the raid, airstrikes were called in during a 45-minute gun battle on the ground. Reports say the dead included the 8-year-old daughter of Anwar al-Awlaki. He was an American-born Yemeni al-Qaeda fighter killed in a US strike in 2011. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has exploited the 2-year civil war in Yemen to consolidate its presence in the south and southeast of the country. A White House official said the target for this attack had been approved by the previous administration but was delayed for operational reasons.
This will put more pressure on the administration to be more engaged positively with its allies in the region, including Yemeni government, and they have to prove that they are, the government in Washington is sincere in fighting terror.
With an estimated 14 al-Qaeda fighters dead, President Trump is likely to continue to defend this operation despite the increased number of civilians killed.
And that wraps up this evening's developments of news. Now for a recap of our top stories tonight. Nationally, the government's indifference to criminal activity will cost them dearly, warns former Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Erlasim Martin. Regionally, more women are consuming alcohol in Grenada, and this is concerning health and education officials deeply. Internationally, Donald Trump has struck again earlier today, calling a deal with Australia to relocate refugees dumb. Stay with us. Still to come this evening, Sports Zone. Tonight in sport, Usain Bolt's All-Stars team will face England in the revolutionary Nitro Athletics meet. We have the details in just a bit. England will provide one of 5 teams competing against Usain Bolt's All-Stars in a new athletic event IAAF President Lord Coe says will revolutionize the sport. Jamaica's Bolt, an 8-time Olympic gold medalist, will be the star attraction at the first Nitro Athletics event in Melbourne on Saturday. It includes both traditional and new events such as the Elimination Mile. This will be a track and field as it's never been seen before, said Bolt when asked about the upcoming event. The 30-year-old learned last week that he would have to hand back one of his 9 Olympic gold medals after his teammate Nesta Carter tested positive for a banned substance. At the time and in response to this, Bolt said, quote, "I'm not happy, but it's just one of those things that happens in life." The Nitro Athletics format, which has been described as a game changer, will showcase a mix of power, endurance, technique, and teamwork disciplines across sprints, distance, field, and para-athletic events. Cue mixed events, medley relays, and target javelin with countdown clocks, athletes wearing microphones, and fluorescent blocks and batons. Points are awarded for each of the 12 events as the 6 teams compete over 3 one-day meetings at Melbourne's Lakeside Stadium. On to golf now. Tiger Woods failed to card a birdie as he shot a 5-over par 77 to trail leader Sergio Garcia by 12 shots at the Dubai Desert Classic. The 14-time major winner, playing in his first European Tour event after a back injury, faces missing successive cuts after struggling at Torrey Pines. 41-year-old Woods admitted that he was doing a poor job of setting up his shots Starting his opening round in the back nine, Woods got off to a very poor start as he found a bunker and bogeyed the par 5 opener. He dropped another shot in the 12th before his approach shot fell short of the 18th green and rolled back into the water, leading his third bogey of the day. Woods, who returned to action last December after 15 months out following surgery, had a 3-putt bogey on the 5th and missed par from 5 feet on the 6th. Woods insisted that he had not suffered a back injury setback despite climbing awkwardly out of a greenside bunker early on and grimacing as he walked off the tee on his 16th hole. Finally tonight, we turn attention now to the Africa Cup of Nations, where Ghana are preparing to take on Cameroon. However, it's unclear whether the Ghana Black Stars captain and star players Asamoah Gyan will feature in the game against the Cameroon Lions.
The second Cup of Nations semi-final takes place in Franceville, where Ghana will take on Cameroon. The Black Stars held training on Wednesday, but assistant coach Maxwell Kanadu has remained mum on the chances of Captain Asamoah Gyan featuring against the indomitable Lions. Thursday's semi-final is a repeat of the 2008 tournament, where Cameroon faced the then hosts Ghana. 9 years ago, the Lions won 1-0. This time around, Ghana will be hoping to improve on their impressive record of 6 consecutive semi-finals at the Continental Tournament.
We're all very sad when Jan limped off the pitch the last time, and we thought it was going to be very, very serious injury. But hopefully our doctors have been working on him since then, and gradually he's picking up. We can't confirm at the moment whether he's going to play or not, because the doctors are still working on him. But he was able to, jog and do some small ball work yesterday, so hopefully we just have to wait and see what happens. But for now, we can't confirm.
We have to be well composed, relaxed, calm, because they can be surprised tomorrow. But like how I said at first, we already have a series of meetings and you know how to tackle every game. I hope what happened to those countries didn't happen to us. For sure, it will never happen. So we are aware of that, and we will concentrate on the game and make the nation proud.
And that wraps up this evening's edition of Sports Zone and of the SKN News Now Evening Edition. On behalf of the entire team here at Kiss FM and the SKN News Now News Desk, I'm Ebony Brandon, wishing you a very pleasant evening. Goodbye.